Can you do functional training with resistance bands? Alright, before we get too carried away, make sure you head down to the description, click the link and get yourself your free copy of my ebook, Train Wherever the Fuck You Want. We're talking all things resistance bands and how you can train wherever the fuck you want. Alright, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notifications on. Look, the first thing to sort of think of when you're doing functional training with any piece of equipment is how many muscle groups am I working and how does this apply to my real day-to-day life? Functional training is there to make life easier, using movements that are applicable to your real day life, not just for aesthetic purposes. Obviously that's the end goal as well. We want a body we're proud of, right? But we also want a body that we can use to do shit properly, to play sports better, to do our job better, to do our chores around the house better, just making life easier. Look, functional training is growing in popularity, and a big reason for that is people are seeing more and more exercise being done with all these crazy cool pieces of equipment. You know, like we're seeing lots more tire flips and fucking log press and sledgehammers and kettlebells and sandbags and rope climbs, all these cool looking things. But for me, the main thing we want to focus on when we're doing any sort of training, especially functional training, is how is our core working? This is a super important area for anything that we're doing, and we always need to make sure we're firing up the stuff that's keeping us upright and straight and strong. So look, think any twisting movement, any single side movement, all of that sort of stuff is keeping our core stabilized. It's forcing us to balance. We're constantly moving that bad boy. A big reason why a lot of functional movements are also a lot of the popular compound movements. Compound movements meaning any exercise that uses more than one joint, because when you use more than one joint, you're using all the muscles around that joint. You're using all those muscles together, and typically compound movements use a lot of core strength. So by training with full body functional compound movements, we're doing a lot more to improve the strength in those areas that are going to improve our day-to-day life. First thing, let's look at a wood chopping movements. So you see that quite often done with cable machines, and yes, we can do it with a resistance band. So tying the band at a height somewhere around your navel and chest. Hold the other end of the band like you would an axe, one hand over the other. All right, with tension on the band, you're gonna start twisting from side to side with straight arms. Remember, slow and controlled movements. You'll find yourself shifting your feet around to keep yourself balanced. Your legs and shoulders should be braced. Your core is keeping you balanced while also performing the twisting movement. All right, so where else can we apply that to our real life? Think moving a box from the table to the bench, swinging a bat, or throwing a ball. That's just one functional movement we can do with a resistance band. Before we get too carried away, let's talk about some of the benefits of training with resistance bands. Look, they're super easy to transport. Resistance bands are your travel gym. You can take them with you anywhere and they don't weigh too much or take up too much space, making them the perfect tool for traveling. Okay, if we look at the workouts themselves with resistance bands, one of the huge benefits of training with resistance bands is you can keep tension on the muscle for the full range of motion. Unlike free weights, where you have that sort of really heavy part through the middle of the movement, but it's a lot lighter at the start and say the finish, a resistance band is going to keep tension on the whole time, letting your muscle work a whole lot longer. Look, I know it's a whole lot easier to track your progress and to build up with free weights, but one simple solution to that with resistance bands is just slowing down the movement. You can even double the band over. But just by slowing down the movement, especially in that negative phase of the movement, you're going to keep tension on a whole lot longer and you're really going to burn those muscles out. All right, so if we talk about some of the typical functional movements we see, let's start with, say, a kettlebell swing. Everything is the same with a standard kettlebell swing, whether it's with a band or whether it's with a kettlebell itself. The only thing you'll probably notice is that you lose resistance completely at the bottom where the tension's off the band, but as you start pulling up through the movement, the tension starts increasing rapidly. You can even take a kettlebell swing further by attaching a band to it. All right, what about overhead squats? Okay, so for me, overhead squats are more of a core strength and mobility movement than it is an out and out strength movement for your legs. But when we add a band to that, instead of doing it with a bar, the constant pulling of the band is gonna have you wobbling all over the show. So you gotta make sure you keep your shit tight. All right, let's dive into a couple of the core movements that I quite often do with my clients, starting with a pull-off press. So pull-off press is pretty basic to understand. You want tension coming from the side and you simply press the band out and back nice and fast without letting the band pull you to the side. This is where your core is working and you're trying not to twist to the side. Another one, and honestly I don't really know the name of this movement, I just call them like a split step twist. You really want to work on the control through this movement and not letting your hands cross back over that front foot when you finish the step. This movement is fucking crazy good. This movement is really good for any sort of contact sport. If you think when you're running down the sideline to score that try and someone hits you from the side, you need to be ready to brace for that impact. Same if someone's coming in with a big chopping kick to your ribs. All right, let's go over compound movements a little bit more. So when you look at most old people, they struggle to stand up and sit down. And a big reason for that is they stop giving their muscles any sort of work. They stop doing any sort of training. And when you're not training your muscles, they waste away. And this gets faster as you get older. So they've done their dash, they've retired, they're happy to just do their gardening, but the muscles are wasting away. So when they stand up and sit down from a chair, they have a real hard time doing this. All it takes is just maintaining some squats throughout your life, and that's gonna keep your muscles strong enough. When you do stand up and sit back down on the couch, you got the muscles there to do the job. It's not so much of a chore anymore. So by simply doing these with resistance bands fairly regularly, you're gonna save yourself a world of problems when you hit your 60s and your 70s. All right, what about deadlifts? Another very standard compound movement that has been used a lot in functional training as well. How does this apply to your real life? Anytime you pick anything up, think you've just finished the groceries, you've grabbed your shit out of the car, you're picking it up off the floor, just like you would doing a deadlift. A lot of people bend over, lift with their back. Terrible. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be learning how to deadlift properly. You want to engage your whole core and lift how you should lift. Deadlifts should be a staple movement of anybody's training routine, whether that's with a bar or whether that's with a resistance band. And as you can see, it's really not that hard to replicate with a resistance band either. And like I said before, once you find it's getting a little bit easy with the band you're using, use 2 bands, double the band over, slow the movement down. All right, I hope you got something useful out of that. Like I said at the start, please head down into the description, click the link and get yourself your free copy of my ebook, Train Wherever the Fuck You Want. I go over all things resistance bands. You get a sample training week. I break down training splits for you. It's full of goodies, value for dollar. It's free. All right, as always, like and subscribe. Please, we're getting close. Let's get that green Lamborghini. Maybe a yacht. I don't mind, but we've got to do this together. I can't do this without you. All right, thanks a lot. See you next time.